If we could all stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:34. And the first item is a tax classification hearing. Form to be signed in signature folder.
Mr. Dillon, you have the wrong name in front of you.
I'm trying to hide it in disguise.
I'm sorry to ask that.
Yeah, Reggie said there's something wrong with the heat. There's too much of it.
It's a lot. Very much too much. We're going to start all doing like letters. Thank
not
you
trying
very
to-
much, Mr. Dawson.
Sure, we're not trying to get you out of here.
Thank you.
You readjusted it? Okay, tax classification hearing. Thank you, and we have someone here from the assessors. Would you want to talk about this?
First of all, you need to read the legal notice.
Yep. I had forgotten that. I've done this a couple of times. And it is... Oh. This part here, we hereby attest that on 11/15/2011 at 6:30 p.m. at Southampton Town Hall, a public hearing was held. How are we doing?
No, that's what you
That's
signed.
fine.
You held the public.
Okay.
You have to read the notice
Above.
that's in the paper that announces the hearing.
Yeah.
Well, much to my chagrin, I don't have that, but
Reggie's
Reggie's
gone
gone to get it, so
Because I looked, I don't see
it's
it.
one of those points that just... Government's a place of a lot of details. So we'll get to that.
No.
Right, right. This is every week. Oh, okay. That's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Reggie. That's okay. That's all right. Hear ye, hear ye. Notice to Southampton residents, tax classification hearing. The Select Board will hold a tax rate classification hearing on Tuesday, November 15th, 2011 at 6:30 p.m. in the Town Hall, 210 College Highway, first floor meeting room during the Select Board's regular meeting posted November 10th, 319-7920. We are now in that hearing. Thank you, Barb, for reminding me of exactly what to do. Do you have anything from the Board of Assessors?
Traditionally, the town of Southampton has maintained a uniform classification rate. There is very little commercial, industrial, and personal property tax within the town of Southampton. The residential percentage is in excess of 93%.
Right.
It is the recommendation of the Board of Assessors, if you are interested, that you maintain the existing percentage rates for the town of Southampton.
All righty, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Yourselves, has this been fairly consistent, that 93.88% in residential in your recent memory at least?
Yes.
Okay, no questions from myself. Does either of the other board members have questions?
I'll move to it. We have a unified rate.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes, we have a unified rate. And then we have something that needs to be signed by the town clerk, okay, which is that hereby attest that notice was given to taxpayers at a public hearing on the issue of adopting the tax levy percentages for fiscal year 2012 would be held November 15, 2011, 6:30 p.m. at Southampton Town Hall. And there was a legal ad in the Daily Hampshire Gazette. So we need to get Eileen to sign that. looks like. And then, we have been informed by the assessors of excess levy capacity. Do you have information on that?
I do not have any, and I don't believe the tax rate has been set, so.
Right, it says not applicable, so I was
Yeah,
curious.
so you wouldn't know at
Right.
this point.
That's true, that would make sense. I wonder why that's in there to begin with. Okay,
Perhaps some communities would set their, would do a tax classification after they've set the rate. I'm not sure. but
okay.
We have not.
All right. Well, this is the moment, and do you want to do something?
I thought we did it. What else do we need to do? Sit.
That's a uniform levy, so then we have to just sign.
Yeah.
Okay.
You need, I think, the town clerk.
Town clerk needs to sign, but we only have to take one action as a unified rate tonight.
Right.
Okay.
I may be excused.
Yes, and thank you for all your diligence.
Okay.
Well, I learned something about tax rates there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're a few minutes early for the joint meeting with the library trustees, if that's all right with folks here. Okay.
Not quite a shot anymore tonight. We have, you want to do the warrant that's here?
We could do
Oh, they're
some
coming. Okay.
other things. Here they come. Hi, Candy. Harry, for a minute there, not knowing what to say. Hey, okay, we'd like to welcome everybody. Hi, hello, and everybody, meaning the library trustees. And you all have a quorum, have you convened? Okay, so we're in a joint meeting then, and the purpose of this joint meeting, my understanding, is to interview and make 2 appointments. Additionally, to consider some terms about the status of the library in its current situation. So I guess we would look to you all for some specific information.
Well, Vicki needs to go forward with the appointment of the 2 trustees, Mr. Barton and Patrick.
I'm sorry, that names?
Teresa Barton
Right.
and Patrick Wright.
Right. Mhm.
Teresa Patrick. Okay, thank you. So both are here.
All right, and that would give you how many people, just out of curiosity?
That will give us 11. We will have 1 remaining open.
One remaining out of 12. Okay. All right. Okay, so have you taken specific action with respect to a vote on these, presenting these 2 people?
Yes, we have.
Okay, and then the vote was in the majority, I'm presuming, for both?
Yes.
All right, from our perspective, as you know, you all are elected and so are we, and so we work presumably, cooperatively and collaboratively to keep things moving along. That said, I would like to ask Ms. Barton, in the back, there she is, hi, now that I recognize you again. Why?
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 Why do I want to be?
Yes. Uh-huh.
I've been involved in some other organizations in town up till now, for 10, 15 years, but at the moment, other than being the plant lady who takes care of all the
And they're beautiful plants, too.
I'm not doing anything else. And so, and I love the library, and I just think it's a community responsibility. Everybody should take part in something like that. And I like living in a small town, which I used to live in Springfield, and this is quite different.
Sure. Okay. And how about you, Mr. Wright?
I've been in town, living in Southampton for about 11 years now.
Sure.
I grew up in Western Mass. My wife and I, my 5-year-old son, live a couple more towns from the library, and we're there quite often. And we've been participating quite a bit, and we want to give some time back and support the library and the patrons.
Maybe a more difficult question is, what do you see, if either of you, or maybe first with you, Ms. Barton, in terms of the challenges for the library going forward in a town, as many small towns that are struggling with finances? I know the library's funding is a different mechanism and those sorts of things, but what do you see as the challenges?
Well, I'm so pleased that the number of hours have increased, and I hope that can be sustained, because that makes it easier for people to get there, no matter what their schedule is. I think it serves a wonderful purpose. It's a community meeting place. I've been to meetings there. I like that part of it, the fact that, groups meet there. I don't know, I think with the advent of Kindles and other electronic ways of reading books, I prefer reading paper, a book made out of paper, and so I hate to see anything done that would, diminish that aspect of it. I like to think that it's going to perpetuate, and kids will be used to reading books.
Sure. Do you see other uses for the library other than a repository for paper-bound books?
Oh, no, I'm all for technology. I use technology myself. I don't have an objection to that. I just would like to see continuing balance of both, I guess.
How about you, Mr. Wright? What do you see for challenges going forward? Small town in Western Mass, you're from the area.
I think perhaps an increase in the visibility of the functions of the library. Aside from your conventional library, it's a great meeting place for young adults, for seniors, for families. And I think if the library can increase its visibility through those type of functions that cater to certain demographics, increase some of the notoriety and the flavor of the library for the entire town.
Do either of the other board members have any questions or any observations about the two members who have been presented?
Oh.
I was just curious, is there anything that the board could do to help you bring more people to visit the library? Is there any things that we can do to help?
Yes, more money.
Mr. Wright?
We're working on that.
I think perhaps some agenda items on your meetings, perhaps, that focus maybe announce certain functions, announce different group activities. If there's a newsletter, I'm not sure if there is, or any form of communications that we can leverage that increase the visibility, again, like I said, about the different functions at the library for different demographics. I think this is a great forum for just that.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything further with respect to the two nominations? So what would the board like to do?
Move to appoint both, it's a joint election, so
Right.
I'll move to appoint both to the library trustees,
Second?
Any further discussion?
but it's going to be a joint.
Joint vote. So, okay.
Do you?
All those in favor, please signify by saying
No, I think it's a joint meeting, so any of us can move, but you have a quorum, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So we're okay on the procedure?
Yeah.
I felt like Rick Perry again. Didn't know what to say. Okay, those,
Did we record a vote?
we should record a vote, absolutely, yes. So if you, those in favor, would you please signify by raising your right hands? Okay. Oh, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? 9, is that correct? Okay, those
Okay, wait a minute,
opposed?
they've got 12,
I know.
No, we have 6, 7.
9 plus 2 is 10.
but you,
They can't vote for themselves, the two new ones.
no, I know, but how many constitute?
6, there's 6 of,
So they've got 6, so they've got a board,
right.
and we've got 3, so there's 9.
We have 7 here.
Oh, all right. You got to have a majority of the, if they've got a quorum, we've got a quorum, and we got a majority, then we're okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 9, is 9 a majority of the 2 quora?
Yes.
Yes.
Good Latin there. Huh? I learned that here. I learned how to speak Latin here. Okay. Those opposed? None? Okay, well, welcome to Ms. Barton and Mr. Wright as trustees of the library, and we're sure looking forward to working with yourselves. And here we go. So the other item on the agenda then is to talk a little bit about, the library obviously has recently suffered the resignation and departure of a director who was brought in with the idea of moving the library along, and for whatever reasons, all of which I'm not clear about, haven't really looked into, that person got another job, last I understood, and left the position. That said, what, from your library perspective, what do you need to do and how can we help you? Or what do you plan to do with respect to director? Do you have an acting director appointed, I believe?
We currently have an acting director, and we are in the process of interviewing candidates. We have advertised. We received 11 or 12 resumes. We have scheduled already 4 interviews for within the coming week. And we will move forward with that process. Yeah.
Okay, good.
And we don't have some masters of library, administrative background, so we're very pleased with the candidates.
At the risk of opening up a subject, yes, you had something?
I'm Nancy Sharp, a member of the community. I just wondered if you would tell us who our acting director of the library is, because
Yeah.
we haven't been there in the last several weeks.
It's Brooklyn.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't know that everybody here knows that. Thank you.
Trustee?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Given that there was some, I don't know, chatter going around town, all that sort of thing about difficulties at the library, again, I have no idea of the details. Are there any things that might, in terms of lessons learned about what happened at the library with the departure of the director, that might be worthwhile to consider? And the bigger question is, frankly, I'm going to come out straight with this, is 12 on a board the best size for a library trustees board?
Well,
I heard too big and too many, but
I've been on the board for over 22 years, and
Right.
we've never had a problem with the size of the board. It's worked well, especially as appointment by various subcommittees. And I don't see it as a problem. As part of our charter, it would be a major overhaul to that. And we've always had people who wanted to serve on the board. We believe it allows for a variety of different people to serve, which is one of the things we want to attract, not just one personality, but a variety of personalities from a variety of voices to be speaking. So we think it's been working well. We've obviously always can look forward, and we will be hosting with the Massachusetts Library Award in the spring. We're going to have a seminar that's going to be dealing with boards and directors and collaborations and so forth. Well, we're very excited about that. So that's going to be coming forth in the springtime.
okay, good. I'm certainly not trying to connect it to the size of the board and what may or may not have gone on, but how are other things at the library in general? How, you know, we don't necessarily see call it the behind the scenes. I go in there to borrow books and tapes and things. Yes, Linda.
I'm Linda Summers, 23 Helen Drive.
Mm-hmm.
I hold a master's degree in library and information science. I was adult services consultant for the Westchester Library System in New York, and deputy director of the Yonkers Public Library and director of the Otis Library in Norwich, Connecticut. I'm currently president of the Friends of Edwards Public Library. I was appalled for months as I watched certain members of the Library Board of Trustees and the library staff respond inappropriately, unprofessionally, and at times unethically to Jeffrey Obashan's leadership. They ignored the guidelines set out for trustees by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. These guidelines are in both the Library Trustees Handbook and on the MDLC website. Each trustee is given a copy of the trustee handbook when they arrive on board. The problem is not one of personality conflicts. The problem is one of governance. The next director can succeed only if he or she does not encounter the same mindsets and lack of support that drove Jeff Aubuchon out. A public library is an essential community resource and should be governed by the highest professional and ethical standards. This unfortunate episode in the history of Edwards Public Library serves neither the library nor the community at large. I sincerely hope the Board of Trustees and the staff have learned from this sad experience and will in the future observe their proper roles and responsibilities. I cannot support the current library leadership. Therefore, I am resigning as president of the Friends of Edwards Public Library effective November 17th. And I have attached to my statement excerpts from the Massachusetts Public Library Trustees Handbook, which is on the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners website.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for all your dedicated service, certainly. Okay, so we have, yes, sir.
I'm no longer a resident of Southampton, but I was the chairman of the Board of Trustees for 12 years. And do I have your permission to speak?
Yes, you do, sir.
Just for information, I dug up out of my old files Edwards Public Library bylaws for the Board of Trustees. One of the items under Article 3, responsibilities, the board shall have these responsibilities are provided by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 78, Section 11, in the bylaws of the town of Southampton. The board shall be responsible for all monies, etc., etc. Number 2, the board shall appoint a qualified library director who shall be the executive and administrative officer of the library on behalf of the board and under its review and direction. Responsibilities delegated by the board to the library director shall include implementation of policies approved by the board, selection and supervision of personnel, with the emphasis on selection and supervision, selection of books and other materials, maintenance of library collections, expenditures of funds within the approved budget, direction of library operations, and provision of services to the public. I think that item might spell out in some degree where the current Board of Trustees might have gone astray.
Thank you. Okay. Is there anybody from the Board of Trustees who would like to respond to what's been said?
We are here, according to the agenda, we're speaking to the status of the library at present and the future. We will not be speaking
To that, okay.
Jeff's exhibit of his letter.
Yes, sir.
Yes, hi, I'm Scott Cooper, 222 College Highway. I would like to speak just briefly to Mr. Aubuchon's tenure. I will just, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm not particularly disinterested. My wife was an employee under Mr. Aubuchon until she left the library due to his behavior. I heard the words inappropriate and unprofessional a few minutes ago. I believe, and I feel that others believe, Mr. Aubuchon's behavior was often inappropriate and unprofessional. He managed personnel badly almost to the extent of being an abusive, creating a hostile environment. So it's unfortunate that he was not emotionally appropriate for the job, but he found, I believe, a lot of the difficulty around him did result from his behavior. So if we're taking any sort of retrospective on what happened there, I think we need to look at him and, at least have that in the balance when we're considering whether people's reaction to him was appropriate or not. I could go on, but I'll leave it at that.
Oh, that's fine. Ma'am? Yes.
Nancy Sharp again. My concern is this has become very politicized. I have lived in town for over 20 years. I've served both as a trustee and a friend of the library, and I'm very uncomfortable not being in an executive session talking about an individual because all of this is recordable, and I'm very concerned about
Right.
that as a select board and as a board of trustees. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I think that as a trustee, that more training could have been provided to us about what our role was, but I have to agree that board, in fact, is large because there's many tasks that they have to do within subcommittees, and even getting a quorum sometimes can be difficult. So I don't have a problem with the size of the board, but I do think that it would be helpful to clearly state what their role is, whether it's through training, through review of their bylaws, or review of our state laws.
Okay, so the situation we have obviously is a bifurcation of opinions on what went on, and I certainly agree with you that anything further than that with specific people would be better held in executive session, absolutely. Of course, and you've already said that the board would not be responding to that, and that's certainly an appropriate position to take at this time.
And we've been advised by the Massachusetts Library Board and the Town Council
Right, of
not
course.
to do so.
Okay, so with all that said, we're back then to, you all then are you've posted rather, you've received resumes, you're reviewing candidates for director. From our perspective, speaking for the board, and certainly please correct me if you have a difference of opinion, we would certainly like to work with you for the greater interest of the town and do what needs to be done.
I agree with Nancy. We've been here, we all love the library, we're here for the library, and that's what we're going to move forward to. And please, we will welcome you in the future.
There definitely are lessons to learn, but I think our commitment is to move forward and to continue to grow and mature as a board.
And right now, the library is running very smoothly. Berkeley, who, I don't know, it's been, what, 15 years or so? How long she's been with the library, the staff, most of them have been there, either a decade, at least 5 years. The trustees are pitching in until a new director comes. We're, volunteering. We have a wonderful ex-trustee that's taking care of the warrants and overseeing the budget, monitoring that. She has bookkeeping experience, knows the library well. So at present, it's working very well.
So you had your hand up, and then I think we ought to cut the conversation off.
I would just like to throw in one more thing. For the information for both you and the current Board of Trustees, the Board of Library Commissioners has people who are very well versed in the administration and of libraries and so forth. And I would recommend that the current Board of Trustees contact the Board of Library Commissioners and get one of their expert people to kind of help out and redefine, if you will, the role of the trustees. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, and again, I think with that, unless there's anything else that we need to talk about, let's put a halt on this conversation at this point. We certainly thank you for all your service and dedication. We're going to appreciate the Friends of the Library. Would you reconsider in any way?
No.
Okay, thank you for coming in the joint meeting, and we'll leave that up to you. Okay.
Thank you very much for your time and interest. And you're always welcome to come to our library functions. I think you were a reader.
Did you know that I used to have library card A12?
Oh, that's even lower than mine.
That's right.
You didn't mention it.
Been using the library for about 60 years. Okay, now we're moving into the department heads meeting. We're a little bit early. Maybe we want to, because there may be some department heads on the way in, we could look at signatures. Or all of, yes, sir.
Can we talk about finances in general?
As a department head or just
No,
in general?
Just as a finance committee. Just following up our conversations from weeks past on where we are, what we have, what we don't have.
Yeah, you're certainly on the agenda, John, for sure. Henry, the budget and budget forms, policies, and expectations. Yeah, you're posted for 7:15, so,
For department head meeting?
yeah.
But I'm just talking about finance committee questions that were outside of the department.
Yes, go ahead.
We have our current expense statements going through October 31st.
Mm-hmm.
We went out, got them from Joyce, we produced one. We have no revenue reports at all this fiscal year. So July, August, and October, we have nothing. They're not ready according to our information from Joyce. So concerning the budget process, with 1.5 hands tied behind our back. And can you give us a status update of the situation with the town accountant so that we can?
My understanding was that the monthly reports were more available, but I didn't realize that there were only half of them were
Well, they were
available.
only available because we went up there, we got the revenue, for expense only.
No one's up there now.
Revenue was,
No.
they have nothing.
Why don't we send a request for a revenue report? Make a motion that the select board ask on behalf of the finance committee and the select board for a revenue report from David tomorrow.
You need it obviously now.
No, and then when I was cynicism here, I'm trying not to be that, but we've asked for several times.
Well, I know, but I'm suggesting that we put it in writing.
And can we give it a week from?
I would suspect that it should be responded to immediately, but, I mean,
If we put a time frame, at least
Can
we'll
we get it to you, and then you can distribute it?
well, that's what I'm saying. If we send up a request and it comes back down, then obviously Reggie will get it right out
That
to
would be good.
But if you'd like to put a week's, I was thinking it would take less time than that, but,
And then we can get it before next week's meeting.
Well, we're looking more on a schedule to have it emailed
So-
out to us so that, we can review it, so we're not spending a half an hour here reviewing.
well, how about if we modified it to if we could have a revenue report within 48 hours, because, tonight, or tomorrow morning.
You're talking about future.
So we should have it by Thursday.
end of day Thursday.
End of day Thursday, that we're requesting a revenue report by end of day Thursday so that we can get it out to you in light of office hours by your meeting next week.
If you can email it to us, right?
Yeah,
So that'd be
I can do that.
electronic, and you would have sent it out? That sure makes sense.
In the written request that within 7 or 10 days by month end, we have revenue and expense for each month after that.
Let's see what we do with this one.
Now, again, we're going to come back in 2 weeks.
Right.
I know.
We're so far into it, and to be honest with you, this is starting to go a little viral, I think it's
Yeah.
going to make sense.
Yeah.
We're certainly aware of the situation, John. I hear you on that, on the larger picture.
I would like to solve it just within, I think it's one beyond that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my concern.
If we don't get it by Thursday, then we know we've got a systemic problem.
I think we're there on that one. But I think we should recommend that we have them by,
We should have them once a month.
yeah, within 7, 10 days after month closing. That's why I think if we.
When do we close the month on the end of the month, or?
Yeah, but it takes you a week to.
So you should have them by the 15th of the following month, with enough grace time for everything to go wrong and get fixed.
Who got these? Was it Julie? She printed them right there when we asked for them, and went up there this week. Boom.
Printed
There's a button there that
expenses.
says expense and one says revenue, but, you know.
Try pushing the revenue button?
So,
Said she didn't have it.
Yeah. Being a little-
No, I understand.
It's a program, you know? So I guess.
maybe we need to meet with the accounting department
Absolutely.
We suggested that too, but.
to find.
Is the accountant going to be good?
No.
So we're having a department budget talk without the accountant.
Looks that way.
So,
Okay, we need to do some things already. So in the meantime, then, that letter that we could go out tomorrow by close of business on Thursday for the revenues of those.
And I might suggest that we need those numbers on the 15th of each month thereafter.
5 to 15.
And let's start a paper trail. Would you include that with the?
Yep.
Because
Okay.
Friday or Thursday will be the 16th, 17th, 18th.
Anything else?
We'll work with it.
Well,
That's our biggest concern right now.
all right. Okay, so for department heads, we start a little bit early. That's all right. We don't have to adhere to the minute. We have fire over there, we have finance, and we have Mr. Cooper. You're not a department head.
In the cemetery, we don't always make it to the meetings.
Okay. Not all the department heads do, but what we decided to do with these department head meetings, just to give you some background, is for folks to come in and talk about what's going well, what's not going quite so well, what is not going quite so well, and those things, and obviously to keep communication flowing, because as we all know, in any organization, communication is important. And one of the things that in the last couple of years folks have consistently said was, well, we never hear anything from the select board, and the select board said, well, we never hear anything from the departments, both elected and appointed. So we set up these department head meetings on a monthly basis to try to improve that. And that's why we're here with that on the agenda tonight. So are there any department heads who would like to, or members of departments who would like to represent their department and talk about their departments? Either, again, what's going on, what are the needs, what are the challenges, what are the good things?
You want to go over our budget process that we're going to do this year?
Absolutely. The timeline is important, correct, because it's...
Obviously, the timeline is skewed because of having information. So we've set the timeline of January 12th. Now, we have all the information from the department heads into Reggie. We're in the process of making up new forms. We're going to be on an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to electronically send them to the department heads, and we would expect them back electronically to Reggie. In the meantime, we're going to set up meetings with the department heads, look at having the base budget the same as last year, then have them come to us with additions to that budget so that we can look at them and honestly either support them or tell them why we can't do it. Because we think there's a lot of departments that aren't getting the information that they need.
John, we obviously have a couple of department heads drifting in now, so
We're still 6 minutes ahead.
yeah, more are arriving as rather than make you.
Yep, we'll rewind and talk.
Okay. So what can we do in the meantime on the
Yeah,
agenda?
you started a signature folder.
Let's do signatures, all right.
Or warrant.
We have bill warrant W12-20, sorry for the recess there, $88,813.74.
Move to approve.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Housing Needs Assessment and Community Development Fund Program, which is in the signature folder. There are two.
There are 2 invoices. Is that the 2 invoices that we've got here?
Right, there should be, and remember we were concerned about who pays for those, and those, we established that they're paid. It's just-
We have an invoice 6 and an invoice 9. Why do we have a missing?
They forgot the invoice 6. You've already signed the 7 and the 8.
Oh, I see, okay.
Okay, so we have invoice 6 and invoice 9, and these were forgotten?
No, 6 was forgotten.
6 was forgotten, okay, so we're still on track. 6 is in the amount of $1,996.49. And invoice number 9, again for services rendered to administer the FY fiscal year 10 Southampton Community Development Fund Program in the amount of $13,263.19.
Move to sign.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay.
But this year, we want to meet.
Director. Government is nothing if not complicated.
Way too complicated. We used to do a whole lot better when there was graft and corruption. Got a lot more done and a lot more better buildings built.
Even Berlusconi couldn't pull out. He resigned on Saturday.
Jason, I asked the department heads
You did.
who them up. Yeah.
Hmm?
I told department heads that you guys were interested in the meeting.
department head meeting.
Oh, we were going to start it? Yeah. We will.
Okay. Thank you.
We got one more thing.
We're just trying to stay to the clock here, so I show 7:12 on my watch, but is that clock the
I show 7:11. So you and I are splitting the difference.
Okay, so we also have then this grant, budget and program revision form
It's for the extension.
for the extension. So do you have any
Move to approve.
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
It mentions that other extensions may be necessary.
Okay. We have the HCOG municipal aggregation of electricity. And
That may take you more time than
that's
you.
true, okay. All right, so if everybody's here, let's go back then to department head meetings, or those who are...
These are two of the biggest ones, fire and highway.
Fire's in the corner.
Fires behind you. Ed took the night off. Jackie told him to because he's really stressed and overtired. He's been working 20 hours a day for weeks now. So we thought it best to excuse him from this meeting, absolutely. And I don't see police here, but...
Those are the two big ones besides fire, of course.
Right, absolutely. And finance. So without you guys, nothing, and men and women.
Schools, we're probably going to be talking to the departments that are normally the ones that get stuff in because they have very small budgets. It's the big ones that, you know, it's more of a process fire, highway, police, library to a degree, because they have the most needs and the most requests.
All right, you're talking about January 12th as being the date specific.
Dates that the final budgets have to be back already. And again, as we discussed, we're doing new budget sheets. Going to be electronic, Excel. We'll email them to the department heads, and they can be filled out. We're going to meet with the department heads 1-2 times, whatever is needed between now and the 12th to go over. We're going to use fiscal 12 as the base budget, and then have them add or subtract to that with information that they can supply us, so we can be on board with them. If police, for instance, is looking for a new police officer, we want to sit down with the chief and say, you know, give the reasons why, find some stats out of why you need a new police officer. So when the budget is finalized, we can say, yes, we really support this because of, or no, we don't because of. So we want to be able to go to the town meeting and support whatever we can. And that may mean that it's not going to be a balanced budget because we've got so many needs out there, but years past, we've always, you know, just tried to balance the budget and not looked at the needs as much as we should be. We started looking at them more next year. So if we can be an advocate for, you know, some of the needs of the department at the town meeting and get some more funding, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, one example is the tree warden. Dave's a great guy, but we're sick of seeing him for the reserve fund. He never gets funded more than a couple $1,000s. So, you know, we want to make sure that he has a reasonable base. Not going to be extraordinary, but, you know, we've got to have something realistic for these folks to operate on. So that's what we're going to use.
So how would you envision interacting with the select board? To what extent in this period between now and January 12th?
That's why we're here. We want to know what you want to do. Wages is a concern to us. Our thought is the same as we've done in the last couple of years is put level funded wages in the budget, but then also provide figures for 1%, 2%, 3%, how much more it'll cost. So when we know what the free cash is, you know, we'll be able to make an intelligent decision. We had an understanding, I don't know how accurate it is, that somebody was going to bring up put a warrant on the town meeting and let the people vote on whether there should be a percentage increase for town employees. We don't feel that's the proper way to go because it's going to be a popularity vote, good or bad. It should be a process where we have funding so that we can say, yeah, we support 1% or 2% because we have the funding.
Right.
We've got that free cash, it's 380 or so as of now, but talked to a colleague last week and he's talking about the FEMA and the MEMA and the 25% match, and he asked us to hold 50 to 100,000 for our share. And I don't know if that's going to be good or not. I wish he was here to tell us, but we'll find out. So of that 380, maybe 100,000 is just set aside for the storm. Correct. And he's constantly coming back to us for road money at the end of the year. We were a little more realistic last year. We gave him some more. So hopefully we can be more realistic this year. I mean, shortcutting everybody and having them, you know, fight each other. We're at the end of the year, just hiring everybody. So maybe we need to go with an unbalanced budget and says we need X amount more to make this thing work. Or maybe we can work it out, I'm not sure. But we want to be honest and open about it.
Well, just to make, I don't know whether you were here last week when Doug indicated that he wanted to put a warrant article on for a retroactive raise for non-union town employees.
So maybe that's where I was hearing it.
That's right. That was, no action was taken on that. It was just.
Well, it would be a town meeting.
Right.
So we can't do it. So the thing would be, Doug mentioned putting it on a town meeting warrant, the next, which looks like we're going to need a special in December.
December 13th.
But you would have to vote to put it on.
Right, we would have to
not
vote.
put it on, right?
Right.
Okay, just.
But that would be $20,000 of your, or I think he said 20,000, something of your free cash already.
Did he work that out with you?
I didn't get the figures yet.
But it was for non-union town employees.
Is that to bring the folks up to a same basis as the union? What's the background?
My understanding, the background was here. It had to do with bringing folks up who weren't involved in the union negotiations of pay raises of last year.
And it's somewhat of a reward for the hard work that was done during the storm.
A reward for the hard work that was done during the storm.
That was my understanding.
Correct.
May increase. Face value, that doesn't sound appropriate from my point of view as an individual, but.
Well, again, we didn't take any board action on it.
I mean, if we're looking back to try to make wages, inequality adjustment, that's one thing, but look at the storm that.
Barbie, had your hand up?
Yes, I did. I don't know, perhaps the finance committee can answer this, or perhaps the selectmen, or perhaps no one. When is it anticipated that the numbers will be final for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2010?
10?
10.
It's not done.
You're talking about fiscal 11, Bart? That ends
June 30th.
11?
Okay, that one?
That's fiscal.
Yeah. I can answer the 10's all done.
Okay. How about 11? And, you know, if
Yeah, we
we're
were
talking
presenting-
about going forward, it would be nice to know how did we end the year in relation to our budgets. So my question is, how soon or when or?
Isn't that the report we got on
Right, we got the
Saturday?
report on that Saturday
There was a
afternoon.
meeting on a Saturday afternoon that
Duly
David
posted.
Nielsen presented what he determined to be the free cash amount, but it's not certified yet. So it's not something that is engraved in stone, but he had his calculations and he presented them at that meeting.
So there should be a printout then for every department in the entire town to know how we ended up
It was
in
counted.
relation to our budgets.
It was actually at a larger level.
Do you have it in my here?
My understanding it wasn't the final, so.
Right, it was preliminary final. I have it right
When
here.
can we expect the final?
We're going to find that out tomorrow when we talk about the monthlies for fiscal 2012. So we'll find that out as well.
Okay.
And obviously, the free cash needs to go for certification too.
You can't ask for free cash certification until you get your final numbers.
Correct. Right.
So projecting going forward is all on assumption and projection.
Which is a feature of Massachusetts state law that we all live with. Cherry sheets. Free cash gets certified after the close of the fiscal year.
Right, but in order to get that, you have to close the year with final numbers.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, so are we. So, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Anything else from finance?
Anybody else have anything else?
John, what about the smaller departments who may not have in-house computers here for you're shooting out the budget request forms? I mean,
First, they should put it in their budget for computers. We don't have one. So that's all we're good on paper if we need to.
I mean, some of the smaller ones, I'm thinking you're probably going to have to. Just not that that's any big deal, but there's got to be some people out there that,
Absolutely, we're working
Mean
on
who
it.
don't have Excel in their computers?
yes, somebody like that,
Yeah.
or someone who, who's not physically in the building and the department might not, the board or commission may not meet on any kind of,
We can format into a Word document or
right,
print them out.
but we got to get that out, the word out to them.
Right, if all the forms, well, the ending forms will go to Reggie, she can print them out, but the beginning forms, we'll set up and we can print out forms, or we can give them to Reggie and she can print out and give them to the folks that don't have veterans agent or, something like that.
Do we, I know you've updated the contact list a couple of times, but do we have emails and for
A
every,
lot of emails, yes.
we still may be missing some of those.
True enough, so we'll obviously work through, that's a good point, too. Not everybody is wired, especially in the smaller departments.
I mean, the big departments,
Yeah.
especially,
The big money, the big ticket items.
well, plus it's easier to get formatted that way.
Right.
The little ones are gonna have $300 for membership.
Right.
Nothing. So we'll be glad for it.
Okay.
I'd like to bring up the point of the free cash. Now, I know some of the decisions about it are tied to whenever we get a report on what the storm cost us, or we might get reimbursed. Do you have any idea whether that might take a month, 2 months?
When Ed was here that Saturday afternoon, I said, will you have an idea by the middle of December, 6 weeks from now? And he said, yes, he thought that he would. That's why we preliminarily
I didn't
said.
know if the FEMA, MEMA decisions take 2 months longer than that, that you submit everything, but when do you get a response about how much they're going to reimburse you for this part, for that part? Because that is obviously a big question. But the reason I bring up the question is that when we were doing policies last year, and we tried to get some fiscal policies that we could all agree on, and I think one of the ones we did seem to be trying to agree on is that once we had our free cash certified, we would look seriously at our stabilization funds, both of them, and see if we can't start to make a progress in building them up to a level where they could actually help us in an emergency, because we don't have an emergency fund. I mean, we just had an emergency like every other town in the region, and it's only because we happened to get a free cash report within the same week that sort of made it look like we were going to be able to pay for that emergency, but it was very possible that we could have had a bad report on the free cash, and I don't know where in our budget we would have turned to pay for all the expenses of a storm like we just had, or any other unpredictable future emergency. We don't have that rainy day fund. So I'm not suggesting that as soon as December special town meeting, we try to come up with ways to start moving some of this money into our stabilization funds, but I do think we want to not let it sit there as a big lump of free cash, pretending that we can do anything we want with it, when the truth is, most of it or all of it might prudently be set aside for a future emergency. But that discussion is something that takes time. It'd be hard to have it tonight, but I wouldn't mind starting it tonight. If anybody wants to express an opinion about the state of our two stabilization funds and how in the operating one, where we actually could draw money out for an emergency, that's got very little money in it. And the capital one that we rely on for the community or committee that does our capital improvement recommendations, that's also been whittled down quite a bit. So I really think we ought to have future discussions in the near future, because a lot of that is going to impact how we treat these budgets as they start to come in a couple of months.
We should be putting some money into both of those accounts on a regular basis out of the budget, if it's a 0.5%, 1%, or some number.
Another way to look at it, try to build it into our budget as well. Diana had the idea that we look at our debt category in the budget, and when we were taking things off, because they have been paid off, that we actually keep the bottom number the same, but use that extra for stabilization, which that's another way to look at it. But certainly free cash is the most lucrative way to try to put some money into it in the short term. And right now, I would call it critical. I think it's in very bad shape.
We should be looking to put half of that free cash into
half to 100%.
Yeah, but you're never going to get 100.
I know, and wouldn't be smart to, because then we tie it all up.
Right.
But I think that I just want to say that the discussion needs to start sooner rather than later. We already had the discussion last year. Then we all agreed that that's something we really care about.
Right.
So having already decided that, we might start to look at the number and say, well, even if 100 of it were needed for the storm, that still leaves 280.
Yeah, but I firmly believe we should be putting a number away every year, because sooner or later we're going to draw that down in one massive,
What's going to happen? I look at the capitalization or the capital stabilization account as being 2 cruisers away from insolvent.
Right.
The police department needs cruisers at certain intervals, and they come to us, you can't deny it, or we're not going down the road. So 2 cruisers away, we don't have any money.
Right. And we should be putting at least that amount
Yeah.
or some number away.
Plus, because the police department isn't the only one that has requests.
And the other problem with the FEMA and MEMA money is we may find out how much we're getting. The next question is, when do we really get the check?
Correct.
Because it seems to me we got a check months later on one of the snowstorms. It came in, I vaguely think it might have come in the summer sometime, long after, one of last year's storms.
But at least if we know what's coming, we can plan for it,
You have to fund the receivable too. Jackie, you had a point too?
I just would like to make a point. I'm not sure how, the final money from FEMA and how much you're going to take out of that. But it seems to me that we do have some extra money, and we should be putting out the fires, excuse the pun, but I know the fire chief needs new fire hoses.
What do you consider extra money, first of all?
Well, I'm not sure yet, because we're still trying to figure that out. But the things that are important for the safety of people in Southampton, I know the budgets are important, but if we need to have safety equipment, that to me would be really, really important if we have a little bit of extra money to do that. The things that are really, in trouble.
But that's the capital stabilization fund, that's what it's for, those emergency pieces of equipment.
Right.
Fire gear, bulletproof vests, a loader or something, much remember the exclusion, police cruiser, all that stuff comes out of the fund. So I agree with you, we need money in there to drop on them. Right now, 2 cruisers away, or 1 motor away, or 1 whatever.
Right.
One roof.
Yeah.
One roof at the school.
Yeah. But the chief had something to say.
Sure. Chief,
A lot of what Sarah had to say is, you mentioned capital improvement. We've gone that route. We've gone that route for our SCBA's in our drought here, and we established we're going to have a revolving or ongoing account to maintain that. We went out and we did one batch of, we got half of our SCBA's one year, and we got half the other year. Now that's all gone by the wayside, that we didn't have the money to put into the budget, so that capital improvement thing is gone. The immediate need right now, for instance, this last storm, I asked, we had a problem with chainsaws. Now, this last storm, we're still without chainsaws that we needed to replace from several months ago. We personally had 2 of our own people bring their own chainsaws out to cut trees. We spent the whole night cutting trees using our own equipment out there, which, we had to do what we had to do to get the job done, but had these people, like I used one of my saws, one of my other guys brought his saw, we only had, at the end of the night, we had 1 saw running. We borrowed 2 from the highway when they came back the next day, and made it through there, but we're getting down to the point where it's very critical. We're out there trying to keep roads open all night long, and if we don't have chainsaws, we can't do that. It's a simple thing. We can't wait to get back into capital improvement to get it. We need to go out and buy them now. We're only in October with this storm, and you're being very optimistic. You don't think we're going to run into something bad between now and next June.
Can we suggest that they put it on the December special town meeting?
Absolutely, but I wanted to ask you, what do you think about the timing of that with respect to your, with the idea that we'll be going forward, by then free cash will have been certified, we're presuming, and that Ed will have information with respect to FEMA and MEMA, so we'll have an idea of how much of that free cash will have to go to the 25% and the 10% components of that. So,
Chief, how much did the chainsaw cost?
A little bit of information about the FEMA. We were working on for the hurricane, going over the reimbursement for that, and basically we have a representative from FEMA who sits down, he's like our coach for this thing. And that was one of our questions to him, is that in the past, we had put in for FEMA reimbursement, it took over a year to get that. We expressed him at this meeting, and he doesn't know, he's just working out the field for them, but we expressed the need that we need this money within the year. We don't want it, next year we need to get it into this budget. They don't have any control over that. I said, well, we're trying to do what we can do. Is the answer. There is no, yeah, we're going to do it in 2 months or 3 months. They don't have that answer, so you can't really count on that coming in that quickly.
Going back to chainsaws, how much do chainsaws cost? I mean, that's something, like you said, you should have them. It shouldn't be something you're waiting for.
Right, well, in my budget, because my expense budget is continually cut and all the costs go up, I don't have an extra $300-400 to spend on a chainsaw.
That's the range.
Yeah,
My brother just bought one.
I think something like that, just go buy them and come to us after, if you're $1,000 or $2,000 over. I mean, that's life safety to me. Just you get the chainsaws.
Eileen, you had your hand up, then Mr. Cooper.
I want to talk about the December 13th special town meeting. I think it's going to be a rush. I would suggest after New Year's, have it, first week after New Year's, because it's got to be posted 14 days before the meeting. That'll only give you 2 weeks to get articles on, discuss the articles. When Reggie first talked to me about December 13th, it was just the beginning of November, 6 weeks. Now it's only 4 weeks, and we haven't even begun for articles or anything. So if we could just, it's up to you, but
Right. Well, hence my question to Bob, from the Finance Committee's perspective, what do you all think about it? It sounds like you think it would be better to wait. I have the same opinion myself, even though it was our idea, saying, well, let's at least get it posted. But yes, time has gone by, and we're less than a month away. Mr. Floyd?
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street. Your next meeting, I believe, is November 29th. You would need to have everything signed, sealed, and posted before 7 o'clock on November 29th to have a special town meeting on the 13th. And listening to the conversation, it doesn't appear even on the first base. So I think Eileen's recommendation after the first of the year seems valid.
Mr. Cooper, you had your hand up too. Sorry, I passed over you.
Point of curiosity, I'm wondering, just listening to y'all talk about free cash and this capital stabilization fund and, some immediate needs. I'm just curious, how is spending out of those accounts authorized? Who
Depends on which fund it is. Some the town has to vote, and others the Select Board and Finance Committee have the right to draw funds.
Yeah, I was just wondering about those accounts.
The two stabilization funds both need to be approved by the voters at a town meeting.
Two-thirds, right?
Not necessarily.
No? I thought the capital was two-thirds.
I don't know.
Stabilization fund is 2/3.
Should be, but I don't know about the operation.
But you guys have a fund also.
We have the reserve fund.
Reserve.
That's
what
Finance Committee, right. Yeah. But, again, following up on what John asked the chief, if for $300 or $600 you can get a couple of good chainsaws, we actually have added $3,000 to the budget 2 years ago and $3,000 more this year. So your expense budget has gone up $6,000 in the last 2 years. And I realize something like what just happened maybe wiped it out in terms of, the storm we just had. I don't know how much of that was
Well,
expense.
you raised it up 3,000, but I hadn't gone to you because I was in deficit spending on there, so you basically just brought it up on.
I don't disagree with the fact that you ran out of money last year. I'm
Right,
just saying,
3,000 didn't make up what I asked for.
We haven't been cutting it, we've actually been raising.
It's not like I got extra money. Costs all go up every year.
We agree, we're both on the same page. I'm just saying that we haven't been cutting the expense budget, we've actually been adding to it. It still doesn't meet the need, but it hasn't been cut. But I was going to say, if the meeting doesn't come until January, I, as one citizen of the town would say, spend $600 and buy 2 chainsaws if you got to get through the winter with them. If you got no chainsaws, we got the whole winter ahead of us with tree branches cracking. It seems like, that might be not waiting until a January 15th special town meeting to purchase something like that.
That sounds like a go-ahead to me.
It's said publicly here, it's recorded on tape, so.
Okay, so let's get, all
We're going out and spending the money.
right, so let's get back to the issue then of whether or not we want to have the meeting on December 13th or January the 15th. Barb?
I think you need to be cognizant of the tax rate setting process and the ability to send out tax bills.
True. Mm-hmm.
So I would not advocate scheduling any town meetings before the tax rates are set and the bills are ready to go out.
Yeah, that's a good point. So that moves us even further away from December. Okay,
And then after that, all you can spend is free cash,
right. That's true.
right? I think.
And I'd move that we delay town meeting until we have more information, including the tax rate.
I second that.
Okay, any further discussion? The motion's been made and seconded that we delay any special town meeting until we have further information, including the tax rate. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so thanks for bringing that up. Those are good points. Okay, anything further from finance? Any of the other department heads? Eileen, town clerk?
Right now, we're starting to run our yearly census off, and they have to go out before January 1st. That's a big project we take on. And I believe the selectman's office is going to have a flyer to put in them. So we're working on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Jackie?
Is that a flyer have to do with emergency recommendations?
Yes.
Okay. Which we're going to work on.
We're still all working, yes.
Right.
Okay.
Are we, I just wanted to ask, do we need to have the emergency personnel be involved in what we put on that flyer? Should we put that on the agenda to have a brainstorming meeting, or how do you want
Did you
to?
want to do like a department head with just the emergency members and a couple board members, sit round table? Did you want to do something like that?
That'd be my suggestion, but
You don't, I mean, you do something that doesn't require a quorum, and then you can act much more freely.
Yes.
okay, thank you, Eileen. Rini, you're here?
Yeah, just the storm caused a lot of need for at least 5 to 6 consecutive days of re-inspecting food service companies in town.
Right.
Making sure that refrigeration was maintained, or else disposing of a lot of food, which unfortunately has happened. Ongoing, Title V, restaurant inspections, drug disposal, health agent took part in the drug disposal that was happening in town. A lot of actually people coming and dropping off medication. So that's pretty much it.
Okay. Okay. Anything?
Chairman, I just have a question to both the Finance Committee and to the Select Board in regards to the memo that are you guys going to draft a memo, a joint memo together with the Select Board in regards to the budget as to what the expectations are for the department heads, level funding? I know you guys briefly said something about that, but
I don't know if we think of a joint one, but that makes a lot of sense. How about if we draft it and send it to you?
Sure.
Folks and you see.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
okay.
Okay. All right. Anything else then from any of the department heads? Okay, then we're moving down the agenda, which now is, we've done payroll warrants. We still need to, I will say, coming up with discussion items is the grand opening of our building. Talk about.
I predict another blizzard.
Well, Reggie and I had said maybe in the spring, and she said in the spring for the grand opening.
Yeah.
Yeah, the next holiday would be like Memorial Day when there's a crowd out front.
Yeah.
We tried to do it originally we talked about Memorial Day last year, or 11, yeah, but we missed it.
Yeah, some folks are going to be away or something.
I think it was because the seniors, we were kind of incomplete at that point in time, still battling demons.
Yeah. There was nothing to celebrate yet.
Pretty soon we can have the 10th anniversary and the grand opening at the same time.
Regarding the senior center, I'm going to pick up a grant book from the public library. Reggie and I are going to work on this.
Okay, so now we're moving into the next agenda item, which is the Hampshire Council of Governments Municipal Aggregation of Electricity. There's a contract in the signature folder that we need to consider.
Oh, wait a minute, there's actually something else here. This agreement, Pioneer Valley Planning Commission, Unity Fund, there's an actual separate page that was...
There was a mistake on the first contract amendment. Please have the board sign this corrected version. Thanks, Kelvin. If you recall that Kelvin was here on behalf of the HCOG, and we discussed this aggregation of electricity, obviously with the intent of lowering our costs. And basically, they hedge the cost of electricity, and they provide a daily rate or a day rate for us. Electricity typically fluctuates by the hour out there in the business world, but they are willing to take those fluctuations, giving us a smooth, level rate. We had agreed to that, and there was a mistake in the contract amendment.
Actually, I think that mistake is for the Hilltown Pioneer Valley Planning.
Yeah, that's not for the aggravation. That's for that. That's for those
yes.
TV, PC things.
Yep. Okay, so we're not doing that.
So it's just to correct the move to sign.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
In favor?
Aye. Corrects an earlier contract that had a wrong date on it.
Go back to Hampshire Council of
Now you're on,
Governments.
yeah, now you're on Hampshire Council of Governments.
I feel more like Rick Perry every day. I'm in Kane. I don't know what to say.
You were okay when you were Rick Perry, but you're getting out on thin ice. I ain't going near it when you're on Kane.
Okay, we need an attest to.
There's your council of government.
Okay, so back to as I was saying, again, this comes to us from the Hampshire Council of Governments. Municipal Aggregation of Electricity petition was filed with the state on June 23rd and is awaiting approval. In order to implement the program with 22 participating municipalities, we need a signed agreement authorizing the Hampshire Council to proceed. We request that you sign the agreement and return one signed copy to us in the enclosed envelope. The agreement will authorize the council, HCOG, to complete the process of seeking DPU approval on behalf of the municipalities and implement the program immediately after all necessary state approvals have been completed. Of course, we're happy to discuss with you any questions you may have. We look forward to working together both to improve service and reduce prices for electricity supply. Signed, Kenneth Elstein from Hampshire Council of Governments.
Program was presented a long time ago, but then, as I recall, it puts us under no obligation in it. So.
Didn't he say he wasn't going to be able to save us a lot of money like he had in the past?
Yeah, we don't get the money that we used to get in the past. You're right. I don't think it puts us in any worse condition than we are.
That was our conclusion, as I recall. It doesn't make things any worse.
Yeah, Ed said that it was a good program.
Yeah. In the past, it saved us a ton of money. Or seemed to save us a ton of money.
Because it does affect the highway department. They have other programs.
Well, it affects the highway and the water because they're the big consumers, I think, of electricity.
Yeah, because I read over the
pumps.
information and it was...
So I would move to sign.
I second.
Just looking for exit clauses. Remember we talked about that? It's a 5-year contract from the date first written.
I didn't say the 26th of November, did you?
But I don't think we don't have to, Joe. We don't have to do anything if we're not. This just lets them go seek the approval.
The motion's been made and seconded to sign, authorizing them to go seek the approval.
Aye.
Any further discussion?
Aye.
Aye. Those in favor, please signify by
Aye.
saying
Aye.
aye.
Sorry.
All right. You sound
Tired.
like Popeye the Sailor.
Aye.
Tired group.
Okay, moving down the list in the agenda, we have
November 29th, I may not be here because I am going to North Carolina again, and I may not be back by that time. So I'll just make,
So is that November 29th, or I was asking, would the select board consider meeting on November 22nd? We have some executive session items that need to be reviewed. Would everybody be present? I mean, that's Thanksgiving. I don't know.
I leave on Thanksgiving Day, and I won't, and then I'll be back the Tuesday after.
20 seconds before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I can be here that night.
Okay. Will you be able to? Yes.
Yes, I can. I think I have this executed. About Doug, he will be away in December.
Yes.
Okay. Timber cutting plans, nothing. New town hall updates, custodial, security, and Reggie, you'd sent out a custodial job description, which we haven't had a chance to discuss yet. Security, punch list, senior center, and open house. Any items around?
I do. I have an update in regards to the front door. Hello is here this afternoon, and they were looking at the door. They were scheduled to be here for the 5th of December, but they've showed up today to work with 5 Star. You saw that email that 5 Star agreed to fix the door. So Pella is trying to remedy, and I don't know what their solution is going to be, but they were looking at it this afternoon, and they had questions in regards to, does the water come over? There's water signs on the front by the door.
Are we talking the very front door or the side?
The very front door.
Okay, the real front door.
Yeah. And so we have to, I've got to find out and get an answer whether the water comes over the gutter, which I don't think it does, but I don't recall. I don't know the answer to that. But I also showed them the windows, and they believe that they are installed, and that's the way it is. With the whistling of the windows, when there's wind, you can hear it is really loud. With the water coming in, I told them the story about the hose at the window, and they said that something about in the specs, they have it listed where you're not supposed to spray hoses towards the window because therefore the water does get in. It is in the specs, that's the way it is. So everything's okay.
But on that front door issue, I thought the agreement was they were going to take the whole door out and rebuild.
Well, when they looked at it this afternoon, it's going to be a lot of work because of the wood trim around it. So they're going to try and remedy, but I asked them for a report. What is their remedy? What is it that they're going to try to do? We want it listed.
Yeah, that was quite extensive what they had agreed to do.
Yeah, it's one thing to agree to do it, and the second thing is to come out and do it.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't recall if it was stated in the email or not, but it was stated at this meeting, I don't know if it was John Fleming or Ed Colley recommended getting somebody that's not Pella, not 5 Star, somebody else with a separate opinion telling us exactly what's going on.
That was with respect to testing the windows. Frank, you brought that up too, about testing the windows.
Yes.
And the agreement at that point, at least the idea, was to get somebody who was a neutral party, not connected in any business way, and do the window test. There are tests apparently available. We got one quote for what, 1,600 or something like that?
A little bit more money.
3,000 was
Yes,
something
for
like
one
that.
window.
And so we wanted to find out if there's some other quotes available for window tests. So we all agree that it may not be a good idea to spray a hose because the test, as I brought up at the time, I bring up again, it's typically at a specific water pressure, specific distance, and all those things, because you have to test it against criteria. And that makes good sense. You know, we do test things all the time in the physical world. But with respect to the door, that's a big change. So we may want to
keep an eye and
exactly.
And I did, like I said, I did not know. I see 3 fellows outside the door checking it. Did not know that they were there.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
What does Gary Swanson say? Have you talked to him about
I have not had a chance. This happened right before we closed town hall. I have not had a chance to email
That's a good
anybody.
idea if we could get together with him. Because he was very specific and clear in that email.
And he knows the contractors, he knows every inch of the building, so maybe he could give us suggestion about where to go from here. I don't think we should just leave it like this, and
Yeah.
it definitely should be addressed before they walk away.
Okay. Okay, how about the senior center? We heard back from the quotes.
Belangers, yes, we just received that one quote, which was from Belangers. They were supposed to be here last Friday, but they had an emergency to tend to, so they will be here this Friday to install the appliances and the sinks.
All right. So that will, with the exception of the dishwasher, that will be in shape
The dishwasher will be installed.
also.
Mhm. The next step is to receive quotes for the hand washing sink.
Right, that's what I meant, the hand washing sink. Okay. Progress.
The reuse committee, they're still, are they dissolved or?
No.
Okay. What are we doing with that? I mean, until everything is done, I mean, what's the?
The stage that we're in right now is that Gary Swanson is representing the committee and the town combined between Pella and Five Star and Colley, the architect.
I mean, do they still meet on every, you know?
There's a meeting posted, if I'm not mistaken, this Thursday. I could be wrong, but I believe so.
They've been pushing their meeting off because every time they think they've got it solved, they push the meeting back a little bit to let the remedy happen, and I'm getting the impression the remedy doesn't happen, so the meeting gets rescheduled. And
So it seemed, again, from my perspective, the best idea would be to leave that committee intact at this point.
Oh, absolutely, but what can we do to assist them in getting these problems resolved sooner? Is there anything the board can do? Send a letter? I mean, I don't know.
at this point in time, it's really, this is going to end poorly, I think. I think at some point in time, the contractor is simply going to walk away. And I don't know what we got for retainage anymore.
Not much.
Not much.
You had 51,000.
Not even. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say it's 13, if that. Because the building reuse is still authorizing additional payments too.
Are we shouldn't be signing.
I believe you guys are with the warrants, but it's not in this one as I looked.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we had suggested we wanted to separate those out.
You did.
Well, at one point in time, we put a halt, but then they agreed that they had done extra work, and we agreed, we authorized more. And
So it's a back and forth deal. Okay, so we need to keep track of that. Okay. All right.
I think I'd like to see us flag any further
Of whatever's left.
of whatever's left. We should not be paying out. I don't care what they do.
Okay, and then for the open house, Mike had made the suggestion of perhaps looking at Memorial Day, being a day when there'll be a lot of folks in the center of town anyway.
Pardon me, I want to go back to the senior center.
Okay.
And we had talked about the chairs,
Yes.
and how has that been resolved? Are we getting
Correct.
chair? I mean, money has been put aside for them to get some new.
If I'm not mistaken, I think you guys left it off where you wanted to see what the balance was in the layer B, this building's maintenance account.
Right.
Maintenance of furniture.
Because of the large, there was monies transferred over.
Correct.
So we finally did receive that expense report. There is monies there, but I have not received a detail of exactly what bills have come through. That's A, but it looks like there is enough money in there. But again, I don't have the details, so I don't know. So that's where it's left at with the chairs. But the other question is, what about the tables and the other items that they wanted? And they say that because I cannot think of the woman's name. She's a member of the library trustee. They were looking to donate funds to the Council on Aging for their furnishings. So I don't know if they're going to match what the board members, had decided.
I mean, Ed, and I have to agree with him, Ed said last time, the tables, there can't be anything wrong with the tables. There's
They're out in the
not.
hallway.
Out here?
They've been cleaned and
Yeah,
scrubbed.
and they're not porous to hold an odor. And I suggested that we're all sat here tonight, no one's sniffling and snuffling from these chairs that I am aware of, are we?
No.
So it was simply a matter of these chairs drying as it was, they needed to be aired out for a while.
Who do we know that can definitely say that they are healthy enough for them to go into the senior center?
Healthy enough for us.
You're right, yeah, she's right, it's something that's defensible. I mean, I have pretty severe mold allergies myself, and I have a little bit of stuff, I thought somebody was smoking a cigarette outside, which also bothers my nose too. But that's me, so I'm not the test sample here.
You're the guinea pig you're the canary when you pass over. When you fall over in the cage, we know it's not healthy anymore. Get the hell out.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, but I just want them to be in a safe environment, you know. And
So you have to define safe, and if it's certain parts per million, parts per billion, whatever percentage in the atmosphere, you know?
So these kind
That's
of
what
hard
we're
surface
doing.
tables?
So we had talked about the possibility of funding some chairs, as I recall.
Don't look to me.
well,
I'm never going to be in the senior center, so I'm never getting old.
I would like to make a motion, if possible. Can I do that?
You certainly can.
If the money is available to buy them new chairs, I would like to see that happen.
But we don't know how much money is there right here.
If you look at, you have a report in your packets right there, but again, I don't know what the details are.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't have.
That's the problem.
I mean, the problem right now is we have a number, but we don't know what bills are going to come in against that number. So we don't know what the number is.
Right, but it is possible, if it's in the budget.
It's possible, but you may be spending more than you have, or, you know.
Because don't we need chairs for in here too, though? I mean, shouldn't these
No,
be?
we're going to take these.
We're going to take these. We're going to.
But I mean,
the canary's going to fall over because the chairs are in here.
to get some new chairs for them, you know, if it's possible.
Or could we split it and see what's left in the furnishings account? I know we're using monies to pay for the installation of the sinks.
Yeah.
Could we do that?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Until we know what that number
Right,
is, you
right,
can't spend
exactly.
it. You shouldn't be spending money. You've got a number, but there are some things that we've already voted to spend out of that. So we don't know what that number is going to be left when all is said and done. My suggestion is you wait until you know what that number is.
Didn't we actually vote that, though, to buy the chairs contingent upon monies being available either from the building furnishings account or from
the
some other
town
account?
Delaware
That's what we
maintenance.
voted.
Right, but so right now, you voted to buy the chairs once we know what the number is, but the problem is we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what the number is.
So a motion to buy the chairs would be
Redundant.
Redundant, right.
It's already been done.
I'm just trying to get the chairs. To get it done.
I know, so the next step is to find out how much cash is available in either of those accounts, or any of those accounts. So we've already voted to buy the chair.
Which goes back to this delay in getting
Correct.
the numbers. Because there's already, if you went through this, there's already several accounts that are way over budget. I mean, on the first page, there's 5 that are in excess of 100% of their budget, and it's the first half of the year.
On the town hall building expense, you're going to see a negative dollar amount. That negative dollar amount was because of a coding error. That had to do with S&E's annual contract of $4,000. It was taken out of the wrong account.
The numbers that I saw were mostly software support numbers. Assessor software support, treasurer software support, Pioneer Planning. And I mean, some like Pioneer Planning Commission, that's a one-time, so it's not going to happen again. Town hall building expenses, is that what you're referring to? That's 192% of budget?
Yes, that one.
Yeah, that one.
That's a coding
That
error.
was a catch. How did Celebrate Southampton spend more than their budget?
$26.
Yeah, but it looks terrible when you look at the thing.
They spent, well, 4.37% over, yeah.
I mean, I'm just saying, you got a $600 budget, you know, and
$26 over.
$26 over. So I mean, we've already got some numbers. Not that that one's the one that's out of whack, but the software budgets look to be blown already, and it's not. It's the first 6 months.
Okay. If we could back up also to, not to discuss this, but that Reggie had sent out to us also about the Joe Muse.
Mhm.
Thinking about that too. Because December is coming on us very
Very
soon.
fast. Mhm.
Well, now the thought was at one point in time is we use the library custodian.
That was my suggestion.
Does he have an interest in coming here?
Yes, he does.
And so do we in fact need, don't need then go through the process? I don't think we can just, is he going to come here for the full?
Well, in all fairness, I thought you had to post it. I thought you had to post that job because then you'd be giving him additional hours. He doesn't technically do the job. He does the job over there.
So you think we have to post it even though it's just an increase in hours?
Mhm.
So how can we
Because
get
you
an
have two
opinion on that?
positions. Huh?
How can we get an opinion on that from
Ask the policy board.
policy board?
Mhm.
I mean, how many hours does he work over there?
I don't know.
And how many hours is he going to work here?
It's less than 10, I think, over at the library. Not very many hours.
So, but we want to.
You want to keep him under
Do you want to keep him under 20?
Right.
So if you want to do that, then you really can't bring him here very much because you're talking less than 9 hours.
Unless you, like I said, you split it up into two and give him the additional hours, you know, post it and have him work the additional 2 part-time positions under the 20-hour,
I mean,
9 to 9.
He can't because as soon as he's an employee of the town of Southampton, his hours get aggregated.
Right.
Right,
if
so
he's
keep the
working-
total under.
Oh, yeah, keep the total under 20.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying you can't have a part-time job there and a part-time job here.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, it
That total
was-
more than 20 because then he becomes,
Right, right, and that's something that we need to look out for.
Okay.
because it almost seems more efficient to get a municipal building custodian that does one that you can rely
Exactly,
on.
somebody who can fix, exactly.
Than somebody you got to chase around.
Okay, well, that would need to be posted then pretty clearly.
Well, and that's my question is, would you like to submit a PRF to the policy board so we can get that moving forward?
Absolutely.
I think you got to.
Well,
I moved to request a PRF to the policy board.
Second.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Now, I apologize. So the question with the PRF, 1 position or 2 positions?
What was your motion?
Did you want to pen to see what the policy board, whether it has to be posted or not? That was the first question.
Well, then that's your first question. If it has to be posted, then we get the motion out there for the PRF. What is it, how, I don't know who he is over there. I don't know him at all. Does he have another job or?
Yeah, he does. He's a computer technician. I happen to know him because he's done some work for me in computers.
Oh.
But he also works as a custodian.
Well, I guess we need to think about whether we want a custodian are we better off with 2 part-time custodians, or are we better off with 1 custodian who knows both buildings and who can do something in both buildings? And does he want 20 hours? How many does Joe work?
He was 20.
So you're talking a job that's not 30 hours. If you combine both positions into one, you're not talking a position of 30 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, you might as well call it 40. And then just bring him on full-time with benefits and have him as your custodian for...
Other areas as well. Yeah.
Does the budget warrant having somebody for 40 hours?
Next question is, does it warrant having that person come under somebody like Ed Cawley, so Ed can then use him here when he's, and then you put him on the highway crew when he's not needed here.
Right.
Create a general position of laborer,
Right. Jack of all trades.
Yeah, it's a good idea, great.
Okay.
So maybe we should meet with Ed Cawley before we do anything and see if that's
That's feasible.
feasible. So under Ed, he works 20 hours between the library or 30 hours between the library and here, and the other number of hours he works for the highway department. And in an emergency, he's an extra hand in the highway department.
Would you like to meet with him on the 22nd? I can see if that's available. On the 22nd?
Fine with me, you are?
Fine, yes.
22nd, I'm not here again. No, wait, 22nd is the week before. Yep, that's right.
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday, yep, I'm here.
Good, that's really good thought, yeah. Makes good sense.
Getting back to what we talked about years ago, DPW.
Mm.
You know, instead of going to a DPW instead of a highway department. Giving Ed, or someone in Ed's capacity, the maintenance of all the buildings.
Correct.
That would help, that would, you know, and that would be a good step if you could convince Ed to do that, because then you get the buildings that have problems, and Ed's looking in anticipation of whoever's in Ed's position is looking ahead to what needs to be repaired, rather than waiting until the roof leaks or this.
Right, and this person would be acclimated to the buildings and their little
Yep.
works and what have you, and call them in when you need to.
Okay, good.
You got a schedule we didn't, you skipped over a schedule.
Yep, skipped over the schedule for 2012.
Doesn't seem real complicated. So I'll move without discussion that we adopt that as our proposed meeting schedule.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So you can post those meetings all in advance, and cancellations are easier than posting meetings.
Okay. Well, the only other thing then I see on the agenda tonight is building use policy.
That's
is
still,
pending.
yes.
So-
Which would go along with it if we get a custodian of some sort.
Correct. That would be very helpful to have that melded together. Okay. Anything else? Open time for the public? Sir?
Well, just point something out. Mother Nature's been kind of unkind to us. But if you take a look at these windows, have they been leaking at all? Considering the storm we just went through, we've had no reports of any kind of leaks at all. Right?
Right, we talked about that at the Saturday afternoon meeting.
Yeah.
People did notice that there were no leaks.
There were no leaks. And we've had, good rainstorms, driving rainstorms.
Which comes back to what we think it was originally, as an ice and snow backup. Accumulation.
It runs down behind that, into the walls are porous.
Yep.
And we end up with water on the floor.
Right. Which lends credence to that theory all along.
Yep.
That it's not not an improper installation of the windows, but an ice and snow backup.
Like I said, I was able to take a credit card and push it in just above that plastic wall that came up. And I was able to push half of the credit card into some positions between the bricks. And, but looking at the windows, the storm, we should have had some water inside here. Considering the storm that we had. And I think the windows are pretty safe.
Yeah, it's not the windows.
No.
It's snow and ice. And we'll know that about January.
Yeah, we will.
Oh, you know what, the other thing we didn't do is adopt a uniform. Was this part of it?
That was
Finance
just,
committee, that was an informational.
yes.
Oh, all right, that's the payroll?
Still waiting for.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, Mr. Roy, anything from you? Perspective?